You're live. You hope you're live. Okay. I had planned to do maybe a Q&A video today and didn't really get any questions for that. And I think most of that will relate to the boots anyway, so it'll probably all get crammed into a boot video that I'll do most likely next week instead. So this is kind of a surprise extra video because I have at least 3 videos about sweaters. I have one about the heavy cable sweaters, one about the preppy Argyle and stuff sweaters. I don't even remember all the ones. If I go back to, sorry for the kind of extra intro here. I know it's a live feed though, not a regular video, so we're kind of going off the cuff a little bit. Where would it be? In outerwear, I think, and maybe another playlist. I know nautical fisherman core aesthetic streamed 8 months ago. I know I talked about sweaters in that, and then fashion trends and styles episode. So that was episode 208. Then episode 197 maybe. Winter reset and stuff like that. Probably talked about it. And hockey 169. Obviously, I talked a little bit about the traditional jerseys, or the traditional sweaters versus the more modern jerseys, I should say. Autumn fall casual look 153. Let's see. Go back farther. Minimal. No, that's just a picture of me in a sweater. So I might talk about sweaters in that, but not foremost. Why am I? Okay, chapter 17, Iran sweaters. Chapter 7, sweaters part A. So Iran, cable, Fair Isle was part B, and then I know there was a part C somewhere in there. Nautical winter, maybe chapter 26. So anyway, yeah, you'll most likely find. I thought for sure there was a part 3, but like I said, it might have gotten tucked into a nautical playlist or a Scottish outfits playlist or something. But anyway, yeah, so if you go to outerwear, and then, chapter 140, US versus UK style, I'm wearing something like this in that thumbnail, the classic kind of tennis sweater, except in the white one. So yeah, this is kind of a couple different things mashed in, not just one thing, but the initial reaction is about the Iron Snail video that came out this week or last week, recently, 11/20. When was that? Almost exactly a week ago. And one side note, was thinking, I don't know where to put this, is, do you wear an undershirt under like a regular button shirt always, or do you, to catch more sweat, or do you, and use it as a sacrificial piece, or do you prefer to wear the shirt by itself? And then it depends on hot weather versus cool weather. So right now I'm just wearing a Henley, just a regular glorified t-shirt, although this has a roll collar, so it's a little bit trickier to style with a collared shirt than a V-neck or even a crew neck, because a crew neck, of course, you can put the collar out or under. This is more casual and not really meant to be worn with either of those. I suppose you could wear a mock turtleneck with this, but this is cotton, not wool, so it's not itchy, all that, blah, blah, blah. And then there was something about a hunting clothes video. These were tangents that I was thinking of getting into if we did a Q&A, but we're not really doing a Q&A right now. So, okay, let me get on with it then. I don't know that I have every version of every style of the sweaters that he listed. I do have quite a few, and at least 3, I think, of the styles that he showed. And some of the Iran designs are better than others. This is the comment I left. And some can be woven thicker, more like I said Guernsey as a joke, but Gansey. I do have better pictures, photos likely, but for the thumbnail, I used the one that I have that's the closest to a Gansey sweater. It wasn't convenient to get that out right now. It's somewhere in the other room. And thicker, more like the Gansey ones a bit, but good luck finding them much in the common markets or for that lower price that makes the regular honeycomb mass market ones more appealing enough for the less than $100 on sale price, especially this weekend and such. Laddie, Gansey, Guernsey means cow, duh. Okay. So yeah, to do a little bit of show and tell, you probably already watched his video, or you're more likely to watch his whole video than my video because nobody watches my sweater videos. Only people watch my boot videos. But this is like a shaker sweater. This one's an acrylic. I have cotton. It's the same weave as more or less the cotton one that I'm wearing, which of course is an LL Bean. This is not an LL Bean. Like I said, it's acrylic, so it's all peeled up and yucky looking, but you can get them in this weave in cotton or linen or wool very easily because this is the most common shaker kind of sweater I think that you're ever going to find. The next, and it's the exact same weave as some of these, but this one has more of a cable pattern on the neck than the roll top, and it has cable elements going down, so we'll talk about that later. But that, of course, is more borrowed from the Iran tradition, but not all tennis sweaters will have that. So some of them will be more like this. And a lot of sweater vests. This one has a little bit of ribbing, but not a ton. But it's also a V-neck and a vest. And I've shown these before. But this one, a very plain weave. I don't know if it'll focus on that much. And almost all of these ones, except for that acrylic one, will be cotton this time. I didn't go all out to grab all the wool stuff because it's not that cold here out yet. But obviously you can get sweaters in pretty much any color and that sort of thing. And so the cable, better example of the cable, another cotton JCPenney kind of deal. And of course, a lot of these will come in turtlenecks. This one being a Henley neck, it's just a modified crew neck. So again, you could wear a shirt under this a little bit easier. And then of course, a cardigan would be buttons or a zipper sometimes, usually buttons, and usually a lower cut neck all the way down. I do have one cardigan here, but I'll get to that later. That comes up in the discussion, so I'm bringing it up now. So if you don't know what a cardigan is, it's Mr. Rogers. If you're not old enough to know who Mr. Rogers was, then we're really important. So again, a turtleneck, having a longer neck that you turn down. This being a full turtleneck instead of a mock turtleneck, which is where you don't really have enough fabric to fold it down. This being, again, channeled, but not really cabled. So it's kind of another kind of quasi hybrid. And this one, another cheap acrylic thing that I haven't worn yet. And these all being, again, very plain weave vests, but just with an argyle pattern. So we'll discuss patterning a little bit more later. I've showed all of these before, and I didn't even grab out all of the common. And these typically are V-necks. So you're meant to wear a shirt and possibly a tie with them, but you don't have to. Although they do look kind of silly if you don't have some kind of shirt underneath it to show like that. It's not a great look in my opinion. I've seen guys on TV do it, but I think they're TV characters, not guys who would wear that like that in real life. But again, these being cotton, you can wear it without a t-shirt because it won't be itchy. Cashmere, I don't know if it will be itchy or not. I've never tried cashmere, not even the cheap cashmere. And then of course more autumny colors, and I have blue ones and brown ones and all that kind of thing. So when he showed the cable sweater, he did not show the turtleneck version much, which of course can be more Irish overall than some other sweater designs, because like you don't typically see a lot of the cable sweaters in V-neck. That's kind of, again, this being kind of an aberration hybrid kind of deal, whereas the Irish sweaters, not so much in V-necks. Usually you're seeing them in quarter zips or Henleys or crew necks, yada, yada, yada. Lately, they've gotten to be kind of a zipper fad, but that's real recent in the last probably 10 years or less, even, I don't know, maybe a little bit longer, and I just was oblivious, but I'm talking about this sort of thing. This, of course, being a Fair Isle, one of the designs he talks about, which is the kind of Scottish version of the Norwegian, although this is an LL Bean one, so it's a little bit of both, kind of a hybrid, I think. The pattern, as well as, again, a not very traditional zipper with kind of a mandarin collar, which is not a full turtleneck, but not quite a mock turtle. Well, I guess technically you could call it a mock turtleneck if it didn't have the zipper, but it does. But this pattern, again, being a little closer, I'd say, to the Norwegian that he talks about, but the Fair Isle, I'll show you actual Fair Isle ones in a minute, and you can kind of be the judge. But this is another technically Norwegian style, but another just, and I've showed this one before, the moose and the crew neck and the ribbed cuffs, which is mostly standard for men's. Women's, sometimes they'll do different things with the women's cuffs where you can put your thumb through it and all that kind of thing. Men's typically not that. Some, you might have a turn-up cuff, like the Royal Air Force and Marine Corps woolly pulleys and that kind of thing will often be kind of long in that you might want to turn them up. How that affects wearing it under a jacket can vary. This one, I would say, is closer to a Gansey, but without all the detailing. But this is another LL Bean one, but with more of a pebbled texture. So I'm not positive that that would come from the Irish tradition as much as the Dutch or English tradition. Total easy care, merino wool. Oh, so this one's actually wool, not cotton. That's nice. And it was inexpensive, if memory serves, for what it was. And I haven't worn it yet. This garment is made from Australian merino, the finest wool in the world, with a fine, soft texture and abundance of natural performance attributes. This wool is a breathable fiber that provides comfort year-round. When wash instructions are carefully followed, this garment will reward you with lasting good looks. Lucky me. So maybe I'll get around to wearing that one finally. It's a lightweight. I really mean to get rid of stuff like that acrylic one, but they come in handy when I want to take a nap, as I've explained. But so then he was talking about the marketing of the cable sweaters in America for the Irish diaspora or whatever. And so Grace Kelly, of course, doing adverts in the 50s. Bless Cousin Grace for sure. And of course, they showed Steve McQueen and Elvis and the usual photos that I don't bother with because everybody else already uses them all. And I'm doing more of the show and tell thing. Anyway, the other Irish thing, as I discussed, is the Donegal fleck, which is kind of comes from a tweed pattern tradition. Here's another quarter zip, but you can see how it kind of has those little color booger variant slub things. This one being another, I don't know, zip neck. Like I said, not another mock turtleneck kind of thing. This one's kind of lightweight, unlined. This is an Orvis one. This one is wool of some degree, but I don't have the tag in it anymore. What's it say here? Body 100% wool, trim 100% suede, made in China. So, okay, whatever wool they have in China. It's apparently not the finest Australian merino or whatever, but it is soft and not itchy. I don't know. So maybe it's a lamb's wool merino blend. I'm not really positive. But again, I was, kind of skipping around, but that's another Irish tradition, is the little color flag things. But again, that being basically a similar weave to what we already have. This one being just a heavier duty version that I've showed before. The Orvis, competitor to the other Orvis, basically just the heavier lamb's wool, just with a lot more of the visual texture and just a regular crew neck shaker sweater rather. Overall, this one's pretty heavy. It's not too itchy, but it is pretty warm for wearing indoors. So, and then I have those Duluth ones that are even worse, where I definitely have to shed those and go in the house. I suppose if you were going to a bar, your results may vary. Whereas if you were going to work, it depends on how cold they keep your office. So anyway, so the cashmere softer, but I doubt warmer than any lamb's wool anyway, especially for the price. So I've never bothered with cashmere because of course something like this, again, it's going to run you $100 or $200 or somewhere in there. The cashmere, for a real cashmere, you're looking at somewhere between $400 and $600, I would estimate. Some even more, depending how pretty they are. As far as similar to the Gansey, but technically a cable, I have one from Barber that I think is the most itchy of all in my collection. And that may have also been the most expensive. I think that one cost more than the Orvis one. And I might have got it through Orvis. So there might have been some kind of surcharge in there. He talked about finding them used, especially for the heritage things. Somehow he finds these. I don't have the time and the patience to really look for that kind of stuff. I guess I have time, but not patience. Because we would definitely save money finding things used, but most of the used things you find for those great prices run small because men grow out of them rather than wearing them out like the larger sizes. And I think I've showed my Army one in a previous video. It's another Henley with a mock mock turtle kind of thing. And the good thing about it always is a sweater, so it stretches so you can still kind of wear it under stuff if you want to use it more as a almost base layer than a statement piece. But sometimes too small is just too small. So the Fair Isle, like I said, to kind of show that, this is definitely the Scottish lamb's wool. And you can get these in cotton as well, like I showed. So is it terribly different than the Norwegian or what this might be? Again, I would be hard pressed to say. I think you're splitting hairs a little bit with some of the designs, and I showed that ski one, I think, in a different video that had the little snowflakes and all that kind of stuff. But his contention was that most of the Christmas ugly sweaters and things come out of the Norwegian tradition more than the other traditions, and that may be so. As far as cardigan, I don't really want to open this. This is a vest anyway, but this is an Irish cardigan with a more open weave, though, with the true cable. This is a wool one. You can see the leather buttons. The proper ones will have leather buttons, not plastic. But there's different cardigan styles. This isn't the only style. This is just, in my opinion, the best style. The one thing about the Fair Isle, though, is, Fair Isle, the wool ones especially, can get pricey again. which is why that Barber sweater is the more expensive one I have than this, because I wasn't willing to spend as much on some of the Fair Isle lambs ones. And this one's a size small. That's why I got it, because it was on clearance. So I didn't have to pay the full price. So again, it stretches, it's wearable, but it's not perfect. But I would say that in some cases you can get, instead of the sweater, if you want to go the less expensive route, you can get like a scarf and then wear that with a plain colored sweater and still get a similar effect without having to spend the extra money to get the full Fair Isle sweater. Again, because the cotton ones you can find pretty easily, but the wool ones, again, can get pricey. So simple solution is to just accessorize. Although I know scarves aren't really manly, and a lot of people think sweaters aren't necessarily as manly, but that's only because women co-opted the sweaters. Watch out, guys. If you love your blue jeans, they've co-opted those too. So might be a matter of time before everybody says you look like a girl in your blue jeans, especially if you wear the skinny ones. So this, in a different video, this which was mostly lame, this Marcus had asked, can you style a cardigan over a turtleneck? So again, a turtleneck, and I don't know which style of cardigan he meant. If it had a similar, many of them will have a similar weave to this than this. I don't know, your results may vary. So I had written or responded, I wish I was drinking something so I could have spit it out in laughter. The liquid, that is. And then he said, why? And so, like I said, I'm not going note for note on the Iron Snail video. There's no real reason to it. It was just kind of I thought it was kind of more of a fun video, even though typically he's kind of doing an advert. Oh, let me grab this. Cardigans are for reading the paper by the fireplace, not for going out much. Turtlenecks, there's an actual thing, are for style and or extra warmth or both, but usually need to be worn under something else for the proper look and extra wind resistance and such. Wind resistance being the one thing that sweaters definitely do not provide. Yeah. Sorry about this. What did it say here? Only the Irish knit ones really look correct on their own most of the time. That's me talking about turtlenecks more than cardigans. But a sweater on top of a sweater will just look like what he says at first. I'm freezing and it's emergency, so I'm just throwing on everything all at once to not get pneumonia or hypothermia. You know, because that was part of the video, is what are you doing that is just to wear and what are you doing for style? And like I said, that's not the kind of video I'm too concerned with making. How you style the stuff is a little bit more up to you, but I definitely have my parameters. You know, I'm not like dressed super fancy for every single video I do on purpose, but I don't want to look totally ridiculous most of the time, unless it's for a joke or a, you know, a costume or effect or something. So then he replied, you'd think that after giving him this big long paragraph of explanation that he would understand what I'm saying. A cardigan is kind of like a jacket, though. You can keep it open or button it up, so I think it could be worn like a jacket over a turtleneck. Again, I'm not saying you can't. But my reply was not really, although there are some zip models with the windproof lining, which I've shown this one before. It's an Orvis kind of hunty one, and it has this windbreaker stuff in it, the wind shear stuff, and this was the lighter weight of the two. The heavier one, again, another one that's this one's almost too warm to wear in the house at all too. But it's a full zip, so unlike a cardigan, which I'll explain, This is built more like a jacket. It has a full collar, again, a mandarin collar that I actually don't like. It pokes me here. It has a full zipper. It has not sweater. It has actual wind shear fabric interior. So yeah, although there are some zip models with the windproof lining that might be more like what you're thinking of, because the other ones, where did I throw it? Where did I put my, oh, here it is. The other ones, do I have to open this bag? I don't know. Show what an actual cardigan typically looks like. Because the other ones, the buttons usually only go up too low for the point to come up high enough for the V-neck, again, to enhance the turtle feature that you would get. So again, if this was not a roll neck and your neck was fully covered with a flap, you would want a V-neck to augment the turtleneck like a shirt. The turtleneck is now acting like a shirt, whereas the cardigan is going to come way down here and just be an odd texture. Again, doesn't have to be this texture, but kind of an odd second texture layered over that. So I don't know what this guy is thinking. Yeah, come high enough to enhance the turtle feature, etc. And then I thought about it for a minute and said, and are we trying to wear a chunky cardigan over? I should have grabbed that other one. A chunky turtleneck again. Yes. Or only a cashmere one, which would be more similar again to a lighter, flimsier acrylic thing like this. Or even that red cotton vest that I held up first. Heavier, a heavier garment would have to go over a lighter weight one for this to really make any sense at all, after all, right? Like, same as what I was saying about being able to use the army sweater as a layering piece, because it's thinner than this, but it's wool. So it's reasonably warm, but not terribly thick. Whereas if I was trying to wear this underneath of anything else, like this is not a base layer. You can clearly see that just on camera. This is not a base layer, and like I said, this wasn't even the heavyweight one. This was the lighter weight, kind of standard shaker knit one. I don't remember what these ones cost. Right. So then he says, I think wearing a heavier cardigan would work better than a heavy turtleneck. Well, yeah, that's what I just said. No question there. No argument there. Yep, you got me. Except I think it would be silly to wear both at the same time. I think you could wear one or the other depending on the weather, depending on your mood, depending on your environs. Again, a turtleneck is going to be office appropriate. A cardigan's, I've said this in every video I've ever done about anything related to sweaters, gonna look like you showed up to put your feet up and bum around and smoke your pipe, not do your actual job. Even if you do work in a casual office. And then on a side note, most of the style videos, Gentleman's Gazette, everybody else, say style a cardigan under a jacket, and they all have the cardigans that are not this cardigan that they're doing that with, that it doesn't have cable knit, it doesn't have big leather buttons. It's a, this or lighter weight fabric, possibly with a design, but sometimes a solid. And I think that looks stupid. I've said so. But they also obviously don't really consider the sweater to be a jacket, whether or not the sweater, as I say, belongs at home. This is not a jacket. Again, this is closer to a jacket. I mean, instead of a shirt jack, it's a sweater jack, I guess. So, okay, what do we got here? Boots. Skipping ahead. Okay. I know there's more. I swear there was more. Oh, this is a bit that's kind of a different video, but I'll throw it in here. The old money and quiet luxury aren't the exact same thing. I might have talked about this in another video already. I don't remember. The latter is more what you mean about like signaling. Quiet luxury is kind of like if you're in the know, you're in the know. You can afford the $800 cashmere sweater instead of the $200 lamb's wool sweater or merino wool sweater. Although, like I said, nothing wrong with this sweater. Plenty warm for the buck. And a nice pattern. Old money is more overtly trying to look like you have the money, even on a budget, whereas quiet luxury can afford the stylish luxury items of that cable sweater instead of the $70 one that I just buried in it. This one probably cost a little more than $70. Being a button-up vest and everything, I'm sure I paid more like $90 or something, but again, you can get wool Irish sweaters for definitely under $100 if you're really looking that aren't cotton. And the cotton ones have gone up in price. So this one that I got at JCPenney for, not very much would probably cost 2 or 3 times what it cost then, but I've had it also for a decade or something. Let's see. Her conclusion is, oh, that's the wrong video. Okay, okay. Different iron snail video, and I can't remember if I talked about this or not. But in October 9th, there was an iron snail wool video that was the precursor to this sweater video. So I might as well go into it now. Anyway, for anybody who's still watching. And so I really should have done like the part 1, part 2, part 3 thing. I don't know in which case this would technically be part 3. But it's just a sweater video, so it doesn't really need parts. And it's not going to be as long as my hour-long videos. We're into the home stretch, so part 3 away. Again, excuse me, this might be redundant. I don't remember if I talked about this in another video yet or not when I did my autumn resets or whatever. But this was a really more detailed discussion about what he talked about the Irish cable sweaters. Again, these ones. We're getting very specific about the Irish sweaters mostly now, and the Gansey ones, which of course were the precursors to these. Most or all the lanolin is removed from wool before making modern garments, though, right? Still pretty sure, because he was talking about how the fishermen rode and the wool was insulating and saved their lives and blah, blah, blah. And then in the newer video, he talks about how, again, that was a lot of marketing that came out before Grace Kelly was even involved. And yada, 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 with the stitching and the mystique and the mystery and the mythology and the blah, blah, blah. Then at some other point, some wool more itchy than others because that texture still involved or whatever, that unfinished raw hair, fur, whatever you want to call it. Like I said, this one not being that itchy, again, just heavy, pretty thick, pretty warm. The Barber one being unbelievably almost unwearable. And a lot of the Irish ones, again, the less expensive ones that aren't the merino, because not all of them are merino, some of those will be itchy and even warmer than you would think with the open weave. kind of pattern because it's still kind of a doubled up pattern instead of a single layer, but not felted. I think the original Irish cable sweater would have been a lot more like a felted, more dense weave than the, again, this, you can see the holes through the thing, you know, and the large knit even compared to this knit, you know, where it's a bit more breathable. So maybe, but you wouldn't, but still warm. I mean, I'm warm right now because I'm jumping around and running my mouth. Linen didn't get mentioned between cotton and wool, but it's also itchy a bit usually. So then in the conversation, not all of this will be directly related to me. I didn't respond to all of these things, or some of them I just thought were useful or interesting. So Louis the werewolf says, wool can still keep you warm when it's wet, which is why it was always popular with sailors and fishermen, which, as the Iron Snail is saying, is partly a myth, or at least the marketed ones are largely myth or whatever. So I replied, I've had wet wool and still not been so warm, but less cold than otherwise, I guess. I was referring mostly to an LL Bean field shirt, though, at this time, not an actual sweater. And other fabrics are less heavy when wet or repel water better, but then still get sweaty underneath more, question mark, you know. Some Duluth shirt one time that I just felt hotter out of the get-go. That was the Armachillo shirt that I wore hiking on a very warm day. And being a polyester thing, I didn't feel any cooling going on. I just felt the sun making the fabric feel hot. Whether or not I would have felt hot in cotton, well, of course I would have. It was a hot day, but I don't know that the jade or whatever was doing me any good in the fabric. And also some of the synthetic ones can be more see-through, and I've gotten burned through a shirt without an underlayer. Certain hiking shirts in the polyester or nylon thing. So more often cotton now for me in hot, dry climate. I don't live in very wet, humid areas, so cotton over synthetic most of the time, and wool is my winter standby, but often gets skipped some years, especially if we don't have any rain, when I wear it just because as a precaution. It's like, well, at least I know I hopefully won't get hypothermia the same as I would have in cotton. Hopefully. Cotton will dry faster in Lake Havasu than Portland was my, you know. Well, I guess Phoenix does get some winter, but, you know, when it still might not be dry all that fast, etc. It depends on if the fabric's supposed to be quick dry or not. Again, it's still going to absorb water before it dries, regardless of what it is, as I found out with the nylon pants last week doing my rain gear test in the evening. Some of the fabric, like wool, should not be wrung out when drying either. I think he talked about this in the newer video. Something about, you know, if the fabric shrinks, you can get the felted sweater back to regular size with some patience if you're lucky, blah, blah, blah. I had one that went through the washer and the dryer. I've talked about this some more. It was heartbreaking back in the 90s. It was my first real wool sweater, and I did find it at a thrift store for dirt cheap. And I think my mom put it in the dryer, and I ended up with a baby sweater and just gave it back to the thrift store. I didn't try to fix it. I was just so sad. But I had been living in the thing for months, so it needed to probably go away anyway. Although wool is not supposed to be a sweaty fabric and all that. This is why I don't know if you need to launder wool sweaters, or I suppose most people hand wash them at a certain point. I would maybe attempt to wash them in a washing machine in a gentle wool cycle or something nowadays. I think the washing machines are pretty wimpy compared to what they used to be. So let's see. So then Armadillo. Wool just doesn't fit the need for me most of the time. For day-to-day stuff, I just go with cotton because it's durable and low maintenance, and I'm fine with washing it after use. Yeah, same. For exercise, I tend to do activities that are tough on my clothes, so wool is too delicate, so I'm left with synthetic. I don't necessarily agree with that at the end. I think if you're wearing synthetic, it's just because it's dirt cheap, and you know you're going to destroy it. And I would wonder if this is one of those things I've been trying to figure out, if synthetic would actually be less destroyed than cotton in the same period of time doing the same activity. So there is that argument, but you're also going to be sweatier. It's going to smell worse. It's, you know, again, it's same as the polyester shirt. It's going to attract the sun even worse than the cotton thing. So arguments to be made. So I put mostly agree, but also I don't live in a very humid area. And then at some point he had put cool shoes, and I don't think that was addressed to me. Then here, Hiram said cotton is actually really good in hot and dry climates where cotton was historically grown, because it keeps the moisture close to your skin for longer, which increases the power of your sweat to do its job of carrying heat away from your body and cooling you down. Unlike merino and especially super wicking synthetics, which can actually make you hotter and more dehydrated. Okay, well, I haven't really, as you saw, my merino sweater is still in the bag, so I haven't really explored that. But I'm willing to bet that overall the merino is marketed as a performance fabric now. And they would argue that his last claim here is false on its face. So don't know. You know, like I said, I don't usually wear sweaters as much for hiking gear, and I don't consider them jackets like we discussed at length a minute ago. Okay. So I found this out hiking with some Duluth shirt one time that I just felt hotter. No, so that's just the same thing. And also some of the synthetic ones can be more see-through and got burnt. Okay, so that's just me saying the same thing over. Okay. Then this guy, JM, said, I personally prefer hemp and linen. Again, mostly agree, but as I told him, linen often itchy. So similar to a lot of wool. The merino, again, supposed to be not as itchy. But linen being similar and maybe more durable than cotton. So again, possibly better than acrylic for if you're going to abuse it. Pros and cons weigh it all. And price, of course. A linen sweater is mostly going to be more expensive than a cotton sweater. So how much you want to take it out and abuse it in that regard as opposed to an acrylic one, you know, you can go in circles trying to figure out what the correct. So then critic, I don't know, somebody with a bunch of consonants, Krishnamurti, I don't know. Well, you can definitely wash wool in a washing machine like Zero Temp, Min Rev, and Min Time. Since wool doesn't get dirty much, as you've said, and this is him saying, as Iron Snail has said, I believe. I mean, if it's fashion sweater or so, it will probably get stretched faster this way. But anything that is for extreme sports, windsurf, yachting, etc., will be fine. And then he is a little laugh emoji or something. Fiddleback, don't know. Oh, that was my response to Fiddleback, I think. Tropical wool make much of a difference. Don't know. Okay, yeah. I read that out of order. It happens. Yeah, I don't know what he means even by tropical wool. The lighter wool that's used in business trousers and things, I don't think is the same as the merino wool that is used in sweaters. So I doubt that that's, I don't know what difference. I mean, if you're in the tropics, why are you wearing a sweater? I guess would be my question. Okay. Scorch Bubbles Yes, you end up paying almost 3 times as much for a merino wool shirt, but they last at least 6 to 8 times longer than cotton t-shirts, but this is not sweaters. Plus, the wearing experience is just significantly better. Here's where we're going off in tangents. And then NJOT. I don't think that's true at all. Merino wool is quite fragile. That's why some of the best merino wool tech fabrics are a mixed wool textile. And having owned 5 or 6 wool t-shirts, I can definitely say they get holes easier. LOL through the quality inconsistency, though the quality inconsistency may be partly to blame. See, this is not talking about sweaters now. He's talking about, Iron Snail is talking about wool garments overall. So it's getting a little off track, but that's life. Okay. We're almost there. Paul XL, don't blame the poor cleaning on the fabric. True. Again, my dryer did the dirty work, not the wool, right? Daniel, if you're unpacking, if you're backpacking or camping, you don't get many options. I don't know what that means. Again, I guess he means if you want to carry bulky or wear bulky, or if extra weight is going to be an issue versus synthetic fabric, which of course nylon will weigh next to nothing. Alex at Daniel, I didn't realize people in the woods were machine washing on hot and tumble drying their clothes. Yeah, typically not. And then Paul at Daniel, Paul love music. I hand wash my wool clothes like once a year and they don't smell. What the heck are you doing? Again, if you're backpacking, maybe you're going to expect to just throw the thing away when you get home. I don't know. Then a different Paul at Daniel, that's fine, but synthetics need a particular cleaning routine to not stink, which, yeah, we've talked about this. And that might wrap it up. Okay. So, yeah, that's pretty much all of it. So, like I said, that second video was not about sweaters exclusively, and we're still almost at an hour, but yeah, that's life. But blame it on Iron Snail, not me, right? Because I did stick to mostly discussing things related to his videos that, again, if you've watched both or either of those videos, those comment threads will make more sense to you. You'll remember, oh yeah, I remember that, and you talked about that. And of course, his whole thing is an advert for wool. That's the whole point of making it, and probably merino wool specifically. But take that with a grain of salt. Whether or not you're interested in merino wool, again, like the one guy said it costs that much. It doesn't. Merino, again, you can get merino wool still at reasonable prices. And a lot of that synthetic stuff is $100 for a shirt and all that kind of thing. So I don't really think it's that big of a deal. I just don't think I would take a merino thing to do, again, the same chores that I would do in something like this. What I'm wearing, very similar, but a nicer pattern, so even less chores. Whereas, again, the one thing about wool, though, too, and sweaters on job sites is that they snag on things. That's why they've kind of fallen out of fashion and fleece wear took over. It's not a big mystery. But if you don't like wearing polyester fleece wear, there's organic fleece wear you can get now. I don't know if it's as warm, but maybe that it's less sweaty. So this is definitely not a video on fleece wear. But again, sweaters originally work wear and definitely men's wear. But I'm not saying let's bring it back in all applications. Obviously, sweaters are not the end all be all on the construction site. But hiking, again, it depends on what kind of hiking you're doing, how much underbrush you're going to get snared on and that kind of thing. And, how warm you want to be, how blah, 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 blah. Okay. Again, you can wear a thinner army one under another jacket, and then it's not snagging on anything, and you're perfectly warm and totally happy. Okay, so that's my video for a Friday that I didn't know I was going to make, but here it is, and hopefully you enjoy it. If you have any questions, of course, absolutely, please put them in the comments, and I will try to answer I don't know what possible questions you could have apart from, can you wear a turtleneck over a cardigan? Which you can, you just won't see the cardigan except for weird bulky indentations or something, probably. Unless, again, they're both chunky things, in which case it'll just look kind of weird and nobody will be able to really figure out why, maybe. So good luck with that. And yeah, let me know, and have fun and happy holiday.